TEDx Youth at Moncton is coming. It's a TEDx Moncton edition, kind of, sort of. It's the same people, kind of, sort of. But it's coming up. It's the 7th annual TEDx event that has happened here in Moncton. We've got 2 excellent guests for it. Trish, Daley, and Branwyn Kennedy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
I know, Trish, this is not the first time for you, but for Branwyn, it is the first time. So
yeah.
Well, it's painless, I've been told.
I should hope so.
Okay, good. I know, like I said, Trish, you've been here before, so
yeah.
You know all about this. We know a little bit about this, TEDx Youth at Moncton. It's a little bit of a different name, but it's a bit of the same flavor, so why don't we get into that? So Trish, first of all, what is TEDx Youth at Moncton?
So TEDx Youth at Moncton is our TEDx event that you're used to, except with a focus on youth speakers and youth runs. So we have a youth committee that is working with us and doing a lot of the work that needs to be done to create the event, and we have utilized a lot of our local schools and our contacts through there in order to recruit speakers that are from a youth focus. So.
Okay, very cool. So Trish, you mentioned that there's a whole youth component to this now. So in bringing them on, was it kind of like, oh, well, now we have a bunch of lackeys, they can do a lot of the work, or is there, a bit of a different arrangement? How does that work?
Essentially what we're doing is mentoring them into our roles. So for example, Branwyn is my shadow. She is the chair of the youth committee, where I'm the chair of the main committee. And so she's learning how to chair a committee in addition to all of the details of how to run an event. So it's a committee of people that have to do things just like we do, and they volunteer a lot of time, but they're also learning the strategies on how to move forward, so that should they go on to a university that doesn't have a TEDx locale, they can set up their own, or to be involved in other types of committees where they're running events. Right.
So very interesting. So Branwyn, a grade 7 student, as the chair of the youth part, what's it like to chair an event this big, this young in your career, I guess would be the way to put it?
I mean, it's definitely a lot of work, but it's really rewarding. And I know that I really enjoy doing stuff like this, and I really like being able to give youth a platform to speak on, because I think that that's really the goal of this. So I don't know, I really enjoy it.
So let's talk about the event, TEDx Youth at Moncton. So Branwyn, what is the event going to look like?
So the event was, as Trish has mentioned, organized by youth with the mentorship of the adult committee.
Right.
And most of our speakers are youth, and our theme is generally geared towards youth.
So I believe I understand that there is, I think, about 8 speakers, I think we had said before we went on. Yes. So how many of those speakers are, I keep saying youth, it's such a sterile word, but how many of the speakers are youth, I guess would be the way to put it?
5.
So there's 5 of the 8. So so how were you able to get those youths to be able to speak TEDx?
Well, we definitely advertised a lot through social media and through the school district.
Right.
They've been really helpful with us and very helpful.
Supportive,
Now, if there's one thing that I've learned from Trish, you being on before, is that there is kind of an application process that goes into selecting speakers, that goes into calling out to the community. What was this selection process like this year?
It was exactly the same. We had the same expectations of our youth speakers as we do our adult speakers.
Right.
We expected them to provide a 2-minute video that told us who they were and why their idea was new and worth sharing, as is the mandate of TED. So we had some incredible youth come out and offer, as well as people who work with youth. So the adults even that we have now are people who work with youth and their talks are geared towards youth. So we still had the same process where we had to weed through, and we only took so many speakers, but it was really amazing to see the quality of what youth here in New Brunswick are offering and doing. Like, we had one applicant who unfortunately can no longer speak because he's been accepted to this amazing program in Massachusetts, but he had created his own app that was going to help with how to track big data on carbon emissions.
Right.
Like, this is the kind of thing that is happening here in New Brunswick.
Yeah,
and sometimes
very,
we forget.
Very big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, much bigger picture than you'd think.
Yeah.
You know, when in youth you're riding around on bikes and making the playing cards make noises like you're driving a motorcycle. But there's people in there working on apps that do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's local, which is amazing.
Exactly. We have one speaker, she's 12 years old, and she has already been involved in creating a climate strike. So, I mean, you're looking at, I think when I was 12-year-old, I was not doing anything that amazing. So the youth that we have, both on our committee and that you'll be able to see on stage, are going to be amazing.
No, 100%. I can feel that energy.
Yeah.
Branwyn, as part of the selection, how do you feel you can put together the 5 youth speakers and then the 3 adult speakers? How do they mesh together?
I mean, it was hard, and we didn't necessarily want to have 5 youth speakers and 3 adult speakers. We kind of just went in, and we had a mix of adult speakers and youth speakers that applied, and we only chose a certain amount. So, I don't know. They're all based around our theme, and I think that that's definitely how they mesh together. And some of them are talking about like similar topics, but
Yeah, our theme is sustainable lifestyles. So we wanted to focus on not just the environmental lifestyles, but also on emotional, financial. So it was, a lot of it was priority to youth, but also looking at making sure that we covered all of the aspects of sustainable lifestyles that we wanted to.
Right. To cover, June the 15th, Northern Fry School. We haven't even mentioned where it is yet. But that's where it is. That's the theme, Sustainable Lifestyles, which be sure to check it out, the 7th annual one. I'm going to keep repeating that because it's canon.
Yeah.
7th annual TEDx event, June the 15th, Northern Fry. Where can they get tickets before we go any further?
Eventbrite.
Eventbrite is the place to go. You just saw it down on the bottom. So these youth, you mentioned 12 years old, 13 years old, 17 years old. There's incredible talent in the youth that we've already really talked about, but, was there any kind of consideration, you mentioned emphasis on youth, but was there any kind of consideration, considering age, considering maturity level, considering certain things, was there anything that specifically you guys were looking for, or was it just the 8 best speakers?
It was specifically on topic as well. So before we had the selection, we had an idea that we wanted to make sure we covered certain aspects because TED wants a variety of speakers. So we are looking for speakers who have provided an idea we're sharing that is usually new and innovative, that really has had some research or has some action item to it. So all of those aspects had to be included in their speaker selection. Right. So we had some ideas, and then we just looked for cool ideas.
So I know the selection process was so difficult, but was it just kind of a checklist kind of thing you were looking over, or was it very, very ambiguous? It
can be ambiguous. We do try to have a discussion afterwards of, first off, do we know what your point is? Right. So if you've put in a video,
how clear were you?
How clear was it that this is your main topic? And interestingly enough, we had an easier time with the youth. Branwyn wouldn't know this from previous years, but we had an easier time with the youth trying to figure out what their idea was than sometimes we had with the adults. Right. So the youth had a much better idea of being able to say, here's my point. This is what I want people to do, or this is my action item. And that's a big part of TED, is that they want to be able to send the audience away with something to do. Here is what you're going to move forward with.
There's a call to action.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Now, that doesn't surprise me at all that the youth would be much clearer than the adults, because I know it takes me a minute to get out a sentence sometimes. Branwyn, what are the parameters for each speaker? So at the event, how long can people speak? What are the rules, so to speak, for each speaker?
Well, how long they can speak can range between 6 and 15 minutes. We pre-assign times and order and all of that other really fun stuff. And there are certain rules for what they have to talk about. It has to be based on some sort of science. Right. Like it can't be an opinion. And it has to have a call to action. It has to be actionable, and it has to make sense.
Right. That one's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no citation needed on the bottom of what they talk about. It kind of makes sense. We've got about a minute. So there's so much I'd love to ask that we can't really get into, like what is the integration with TEDx and with TED Talk and all that stuff. I know they're very supportive of what goes on here for sure, so that's about as much as we'll mention about that. So let's just reiterate, people can get tickets at Eventbrite. Ticket sales going strong, of course. Everybody
Absolutely.
says yes, but of course.
Yes, buy your tickets now.
Yes, June the 15th, Northrop Frye School is the place to go. TedxMoncton.com is the website. You can check out the website. It's got the Eventbrite stuff there too. So we've got about 30 seconds. What do you want to tell the people out there to get them to buy tickets?
Buy your tickets before Monday because we have an early bird price. It's $15 for students and seniors and $20 for adults, and after Monday it goes up $5.
All right.
So buy them now.
So get your tickets now.
And seating is limited because we have a new license holder this year. So we have a limited number of seats where before we had several hundred. This year we only have 100 seats to sell.
It's going to be intense.
So
it's going to be intimate. It's going to be
yeah.
intimate. It's going to be great. TEDx Youth at Moncton. Be sure to check out Northrop Frye School. Branwyn and Trish, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
break a leg. I don't know if it's on a stage, but sure. Break a leg.